we will be synchronized and we will manage to do this. So to get back to the whole topic, preseason speed work in football. Why is it interesting, the topic? I will start immediately, Daniela, with the next slide. So I will start with the microcycle of football. How does it look like? And usually how we plan things in football setting, in preseason or in season. And you can see here in front of you, there are different types of days, like green, red, or blue days. And there are some emphasized during the week where we work speed, and mostly we put our speed work on match day -2 and also on match day -4. But then we can ask ourselves the questions like we prepare in this webinar: how much speed work is enough? How to know, is it really a good option to do a speed work on a match day -2? And is this the best microcycle that we can have with our teams? And let's say it like this: football is a team sport, but it's a team sport gathered of different groups and individuals. So let's say like this: we can have on the same match day 9 players or 10 players who are starting the game, and 6 of them played 90 minutes, 3 of them played 60 minutes, and 1 of them played 45 minutes. And we can have 3 players entering inside and playing 30 to 25 minutes, but also players who did not play. So how to plan for them and what to do with them in the next following days, and how to program speed for each of these groups. And now with the next slide, so we can go on the next slide, you can see some of the let's say problems that we should face and question that we should ask ourselves. So when we think about speed and sprinting in football, most of us think about straight line, 40 meter sprint, and we just do the sprint and we took the maximum velocity at the end of the test. But what is happening really when we are sprinting is the graph in front of you. So there are different types of things that we should check when we are testing our players and we are talking about speed. So there is something that we call peak acceleration, maximum speed, but also deceleration. And we can have, let's say, 3 players who have the same maximum velocity, but their peak acceleration and time to, let's say, 80% of maximum velocity is different than their maximum velocity. So maybe they are producing forces or velocities different on that 35 meters. To know that, we need to test those qualities to say, is this player better in max speed, or if this player is better in peak velocity. So on the next slide, also we have one situation that is quite interesting, and this situation is the next. So in one research, they checked what is happening with the velocity zones when you see different positions. So wide positions, central midfielders, defenders, attackers, and everyone else. And what is quite interesting on this slide is that on the same position, so central midfield players, so they are, let's say, playing the same position, but we can play 2-1 or 1-2, like a triangle rotation inside of the pitch, and they had different speed velocities when it comes to speed training. So again, we can ask ourselves the question, when we are talking about GPS data, is it really 25 kilometers per hour a sprinting velocity for every player? Maybe for some of them, as we can see on the graph, is something before, but also some of them may be something after 25 kilometers per hour. So the players are and have different individual profiles, not just on different positions, but also on the same or closer positions. Next slide. One of the situations again, and this is something that we check in our own research. So we had a lot of games and we had a lot of training sessions, but this is data from games. And what we found here is that 2 players had, let's say, similar sprinting distance on games. I don't know exactly how much, but I think something like 200, 300 meters. But what was interesting between those 2 players is that player 1 engages in longer more explosive sprints, covering more distance per effort, and had longer recovery periods. But player 2 performed shorter sprints more frequently with shorter rest periods. So they have the same volume when it comes to the volume of the games, but they covered them completely differently. So one had longer sprints, one had shorter sprints, one had longer recovery periods, the other one had shorter recovery periods. So again, it goes back to the first slide of the presentation. When we are planning microcycles, maybe we need to think also about these positional differences. And we can go, yeah, this one, if you remember that slide. And now we can go to the next one. Daniela, thank you for following up. This was so cool. And so let's leave the positions, let's leave the game demands, but also this individual by himself. So he is a football player. If we move the position that he's playing, he still has his profile, his energy system continuum. And these two things that I like to usually check, and I think they are very important to test and to check the qualities, are his maximal aerobic speed, but also his maximal sprinting speed and maximal acceleration, so that we know what is happening with that profile. As we talked before, we can have players on the same position, but their energy continuum system can be totally different. And now in the next few slides, I will try to talk more how to approach to speed work when it comes to these differences and questions and problems that we face when it comes to positions, game model, but also individual player. So we can proceed. And this is one, yeah, now we had one video up. We will see if the video will function. But if not, I can send the videos to you and you will see what is happening inside. So on this video, on this slide, we test our players. And this is a test from 0 up to 40 meters. And this is what we usually test. And what I like to test, because with 5, 10, 20, 30, and 40 meters, we can get the whole profile of how this player is reaching his maximal acceleration, but also his maximal velocity. And what we notice here is, now all of you try to use like 5 to 10 seconds here and see the table inside. And if you would like, you can write in public check or in Q&A what you notice here, what is happening from 5 meters up to 40 meters. Do you notice some differences, what is happening with the speed, but also with other variables? So let's take 5 to 10 seconds, check all of you the table, and if some of you want and would like to write some answers in a chat, please do. So 10 seconds, just check the table, what is happening.
Marco, I could play the video if you just give me the rights to play them.
Yeah, I'm just doing that. I'm just doing that right now. So just to see if anyone put some answer. Anyone? Force and power. Okay, Callum, I'm just maximal acceleration on 20 meters. Yeah, this is it. This is it, guys. What I try to emphasize here, what is happening when the players are sprinting. And when you can see this these patterns with all of the players that you have here. So force and power values are decreasing as maximum velocity is increasing, and maximum acceleration is at 20 meters for that player that we tested inside. That's it. The power is decreasing. And also you can have a player who is better on the first 20 meters, but also you can have a player that is better on the last 40 meters. So those players maybe sometimes need different approaches when it comes to training and when it comes to testing. So if you have a winger who is sprinting more longer distances and he's covering that longer distances more in games, maybe that test should be definitely used more frequently with that guy. But also if you have an attacker that is sprinting mostly 20 meters, so we want to test with him also 5, 10, 20, 30, 40. to get his profile, but maybe more often we would like to test 20 meters, what is happening with his maximum acceleration, but also with his force and power values on 5, 10, and 20 meters. Now, Daniela, I gave you the permission.
Yeah, I think I can play it now if you want to.
Yeah, we can play just everyone can see what is happening with what is inside the video. Yeah, you will see just this test that we done with the player, and we test the 20-meter sprint, but also with the just one example. We had the gates, but she sprinted 40 meters. Just an example, but you can see also inside. Again, we can go back to the presentation. And one question again, guys, for you. When it comes to testing speed, do you think you can again answer on this in chat? Do you think that position of the gates, but also the position of a player impacts the velocity and the velocities on different gates? So do you think that the position of the player, starting position, impacts on the result? You can write your answers in chat. Yes, we have one yes. So everyone else, starting position has an impact. Okay, of course, that's it. And this is also what we noticed all in our own research. So if you put 0.5 meters from the first gate, or if you put 1 meter, you will have different results. Because I remember it was one of our mistakes before a few years. The first preseason testing, we test on 0.5, and then the next testing procedure we done 1 meter from the starting position. And when we checked the results, the player were faster, I don't know, for 2 or 3 kilometers per hour, and we were like, well, we did not done so good preseason that this is something that can possibly happen. So this was maybe some of mistake. We should check what is happening with the results. And we noticed that we put a coin on a different marcation on a first preseason testing and second preseason testing. So my conclusion here with this slide is we should definitely test all of the gates that we can. We should follow what is happening with maximum acceleration, force, but also velocity. And we should always have the same starting position and environment when it comes to speed testing. We can proceed on the next slide. And thank you guys for participating actively on this presentation. The next thing that I like to use when it comes to speed testing is strength, especially of the muscles that are most involved in sprinting. So quadriceps, calves, but also hamstrings. And here you can see some data from our results when it comes to preseason, end of preseason, but also in-season values. And you can see that also the group from the study, from the VALD participation, they provide some norms, what kind of results you should have when it comes to preseason and when it comes to Nordic hamstrings testing, so eccentric strength. And they said that 350 newtons is something that you should have at the beginning or in the middle of the preseason. And this is something that now, how the research is going up, the clubs are usually doing this kind of exercises like Nordic hamstring exercises, swings, but also sprinting is involved in training, and the hamstring strength started to be, like more emphasized. But we noticed also with our groups, we test few clubs, first and second division, male and female, that a lot of them had lower values on injured dominant leg. And the biggest problem was not just strength values, the problem was in power and rate of force development values. So some of the players increased their strength in hamstrings, but their torque or rate of force development in the same muscle or force in that muscles were not developed on the same ratio as the strength. So we need and we should have Nordic inside, but this is just one exercise. We need also to produce and to have exercises for producing similar velocities and forces when it comes to sprinting or curve sprinting in football. So the next one, and what we want to do with those testing, and the Nordic hamstrings and sprinting is one segment. We also can use dynamic strength index, and we can define the players, are they hitting more to the force part of the graph, or they are hitting more to the strength part of the graph. And here we are using a ballistic test like counter movement jump or mid-type pull. And you can see here on the above example, if you are around 2000 newtons or below zero 0.6 when it comes to ballistic strength, comparing ballistic strength in counter movement and mid-type pull, then you should emphasize ballistics. Or simple variation can be testing squat jump and counter movement jump, but it's also a good ratio between eccentric utilization or how we are using plyometric component. Again, this information can tell us what is the player profile. Is he more force or velocity oriented, or how our training program is impacting those two variables? So this is always cool to check when you are, let's say, in preseason. You do the testing, you do your 3-week or 4-week preseason, check again these two variables and see how your training impacted. Is it impacted more on the counter movement part or mid-type pull part, or have your training impacted more on squat jump uh, results or counter movement jump results? And this is what we want to do with those data. So we want to see where the profile is of the player, where we are. We plan the training session according to that, and then we want to see how this training impacted on these variables. So counter movement, squat jump, and mid-type pull. This can be a good combinations, guys, that you can use. So to test counter movement and squat jump, now you have a lot of different uh, applications and softwares and systems that you can use, like MyJump, Vault platforms, kind event platforms, and a lot of different ones, so like mobile phones, but also more advanced technologies. For the mid-type pull, you have also different examples of dynamometers and, or again, the force plate. So this is something that it's not so, before this was like a high-tech environment for us. And when I was starting or in the middle of my career, but now this is something that is quite common when it comes to first but also second division clubs, when I'm talking about Croatia, but also in the world and in the academies. So a lot of the academies here in my country, but also in the countries that I'm talking to as an ultra sports scientist, they're all using this kind of test, and they're trying to compare dynamic strength index and its eccentric utilization ratio. And this is just one semantic that you can use for interpret the results even more practical. We can proceed to the next slide, and the next slide is more, well, I will not say more important than this one, but this example from Alex Natera gives you the direction where you should go if you test counter movement jump and squat jump. What is happening with the results? Is it the problem in race to force development or strength? And if the problem is in one of the two segments, you attack that segment. And something that is also very important here that is mentioned is training age of the players. I will give one example. When I was starting working as a strength conditioning coach, I came to one under 19 team and I planned to do strength, barbells, plyometric trainings, and the program was very good written, on a paper. But when I came to the team, I noticed that those players don't have good training age, so they don't have experience in that exercises. So I needed to go few step back, and I needed to start with more basic technologies and methodologies in training. So I have not used the barbell or anything else. I used medicine balls and body weight to improve that quality. And then I progress up to barbell. So the training age concept is also quite important if you are training with younger categories, but also if you are with the first teams and some under 19 player is coming to your team. So next slide, we are reaching out to the more like solutions, and now we finish the testing procedure. But again, with testing, we are defining the profile of the player. So we have the player and his profile, and now we are putting that player in a game or in a training session. And now we need to make sense of the data that we collect from that player and when it comes to speed work. And what I mean by this, I mean on GPS and those values. So GPS is quite a great tool when it comes to interpreting the data from games and training sessions. And I really like this example from Chris Barnes, that he divided those variables from GPS on three different groups. So some of the variables can have a bit bigger impact on metabolic. Some variables from GPS can have a bigger impact on mechanical stress, and some variables can have more impact on locomotive stress. And this is very important when we are working in football and when we are talking about small, medium, or light-sided games, and especially when we are talking about speed work. Next slide. And on the next slide, you will see how we group and what are the most used variables when it comes to load monitoring, but also GPS. And you will see that uh, a lot of teams are using total distance, acceleration, deceleration, but also distances covered above 25 kilometers per hour, but also 20 kilometers per hour. But if you remember before a few slides, we talked that this is not maybe the question, because some of the players, if you remember the first slides, have different velocity zones when it comes to testing. So if you test me, maybe my maximum velocity right now is 28 kilometers per hour. But maybe for Jordan, that I see here, maybe his maximum velocity is 33. So if I'm sprinting closer to my maximum, I will be more tired than Jordan, because Jordan have more space to work on that and to bring more meters in sprinting. So he will recover better and he can collect even more on that work. So this is why understanding the most important variables and most used variables in GPS is here, and that's why this slide is inside. And now with the next slide, we can make sense of those variables. So when you are, if you are using a GPS, or you will use in the future, this is how I like to divide those variables into the groups. And if I use Excel or ULTRAX on any other device, I can put first four variables on the first place, then the second four or five on the second place or in the middle, and on the right side of the spreadsheet, I will put the other variables. And after a training, when I see those variables, I can answer to my coach and also to myself, this training session had the biggest impact on the green zone, or that training session had the biggest impact on the blue zone. So question for you again, guys, 10 seconds. Let's say small-sided games. In which color you you would like to put small-sided games when it comes to GPS variables? So 4 against 4, 3 against 3. What do you think? Which color we will hit? Blue, green. Okay. Now we have green. Nice. Green, blue. Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. So we will definitely hit, and I know uh, why Franjo put blue is because in the blue in small-sided games we will have a lot of the big number in accelerations and in decelerations. But I also understand why you put in the green zone because of the high accelerations and high decelerations. So the small-sided games like this will have a combination of metabolic but also mechanical intensity. So they will definitely hit more blue and green zone. So both of you are correct here. But again, question for you, 5 seconds for the answer. In small-sided games like this, 4 against 4, 3 against 3, which variables we will not collect? So what do you think? Okay, we will have accelerations, decelerations, but what we will miss? Red, red, sprint and high speed. That's it. That's it. So, and this is good to understand, because every football drill, guys, is a strength conditioning drill. So every football drill finishing, transition, medium static game, small static game is a conditioning drill or will have a conditioning impact on those variables. So, and definitely, yeah, it depends. It depends on number of players, space, minutes played, technical, tactical actions, rest between those actions, and meters per player. So all of this will impact on those colors. But yeah, the answer is we will miss the red zone and we will miss the high speed and sprint zone. Uh, Good, perfect, perfect. I like that you are all activated and that you are all inside, and I will have a lot of more examples. So we can proceed to the next one and the next slide. And now, one more thing. These are all the questions that I like to ask myself. Okay, now I have the training session data. I have the game data, but with what I should compare this? You know, if I have a match day -2, should I compare match day -2 with the last game, with the game that is coming, or maybe we can take something smarter. And this is one example of how I like to do it and with what I'm comparing that training sessions when it comes to speed. And this is something that will answer on the question, how much speed work is enough for Franjo, Alexander, Ivica, or Okuba here in the chat, if I pronounce the name right. So if, let's say, Ivica is playing all the games 90 minutes and his average sprinting values on those games are 300 meters. But Alexander have a different position and his normal sprinting load is 500 meters, let's say, in games. So I cannot say that 300 meters weekly is good also for Ivica, but also from Alexander. No, Alexander should stay closer to 500 and Ivica should stay closer to 300 because this is something that he will be doing on games. And how I compare the training session data and game data with his game profile. So I took 3 to 5 matches during the preseason. I use average values and maximum values from the games. Now focus on this one. So average values and maximum values, and I combine those two to get average values of those two. And like this, I have slightly above average because I don't want to train average players. I want to be more up. So if Alexander is sprinting on average 200 meters in games, but his maximum value sometimes in the worst case scenario, they went to 500, then I should take average of those two numbers. And this is something that Alexander should hit on a weekly basis. So one more important thing and one more unwritten rule. If Ivica is sprinting 300 meters in games, the zone to stay in a safe zone or in the maintenance zone, so middle week for sprinting should be from 250 meters up to 300 meters. If I want to develop or overload Ivica's sprinting ability, I need to go above that. So I need to go above 300 meters. And if I want to go into deload zone, I should go below 250. You understand the logic? So with this and with GPS technology, we can provide what is a high week, deload week, and middle week for Ivica when it comes to sprinting. But also this logic, guys, you can use for acceleration, deceleration, because they say that deceleration and acceleration variables, not just sprinting, are more prone to fatigue, but especially decelerations when it comes to injuries. So it's not just about sprinting, it's also about understanding the whole player profile, how you start, how you maximally accelerate, but also how you stop. Okay, next slide. And this is what you should do, and one of the ideas with your team. So you should have a player position profile. So now we have few profiles of the player, his sprinting and endurance profile, but also we have a game profile, what he's usually doing in games. And those numbers are the numbers from one of my competitions and one of my teams that I worked with. So here you can see the minimal, average, and maximum values in accelerations, decelerations, high-speed running, total distance, and number of sprints. And now let's say that Franjo is midfielder. I can see that his maximum total distance are 13 kilometers, 13,000 meters, but his average is 10.8. But when it comes to sprinting, he usually produces 31 up to 35 or 36 sprints. So this is something that I want to see, let's say, depending on the technical tactical model in games, but also I want to cover this in a weekly setting. Next slide. And to get the story a little bit more complex, but you already answer on these guys. Question for you. Can you tell me, okay, the volume, we all know what is the volume. The volume is the amount of something that we have done or the amount of work, but also the duration of work. So the duration of training session, the amount of total distance. So let's say 10,000 meters, 500 meters. This is all volume. Or let's say 400 tons in the gym. This is all volume. But when it comes to intensity in football, what do you think? I have 3 levels of intensity, and what this can be. Again, 10 seconds if you want to answer. If not, after 10 seconds, we go immediately to the next slide. Okay, so why do you think there is 3 intensity levels in football? I know this is a tricky one. I still answering this to myself. Split 30 minutes. Okay, in season, off season, and English week. Okay. Now we are talking about in season, off season, and English. But let's see like this. When we are talking about individualization, that's it. But if we are talking about also about the drills used in training sessions, we can see that there is a differentiation between those drills. So medium-sided, large-sided, and small-sided games. And we can go to the next slide, and I will maintain load, deload. Still, these are the qualities, but still inside you can have the maximum intensity. Am I right? But in these games, we can see different levels of intensity. So let's say in large-sided games on the picture 1, what is the highest intensity inside those games? Because we have more space, the players can reach more higher velocities. So the intensity number 1, that's it. The intensity number 1 is in high-speed running covered. That's it. So in the large-sided games, the intensity number 1 is the intensity of extra long steps or in sprinting or high-speed running. So this is the measure of intensity here and max speed. That's it, Ivica. And I will give you one example why this is important. In the medium-sided games, the intensity level 2 are high intensity accelerations and decelerations. To reach out high intensity acceleration and deceleration, you need some space to reach out maximum, well, almost close to maximum acceleration, because after maximum acceleration, you need more energy and more force to stop, and you will produce higher deceleration forces. And when it comes to small-sided games, you will have higher number of accelerations and decelerations, but maybe not so intense. So this is the intensity level 3, more metabolic one. And we can have locomotor, mechanical, and metabolic load when it comes to 3 different levels of games. Why this is important? One example, the preseason is starting. And if you're familiar with periodization, where the teams are starting the first 2 weeks of preseason with large-sided games. So 10 against 10, 11 against 11 on large-sided pitch. And they start to play. But your off-season did not had any sprinting work or high speed work or tempo runs. And what happened with those players is that in those games and in those trainings, they hit uh, on a big scale a lot of high speed runs and sprinting, but they are not adapted to this kind of work. And because these games are larger in larger spaces, they will produce definitely uh, definitely more sprinting and more high speeds. So maybe the approach in preseason, this is something that we practice now for the last few preseasons, is that we use the first 2 weeks maybe for medium-sided spaces with large-sided games, large-sided number of players or medium-sided number of players to prepare the players for sprinting and for the first game. Or we just move one goal closer to the 16 meters line to save our wingers and attackers or fullbacks. But also the third step, what should be, is our off season definitely should contain some of high speed or strides or tempo work before the preseason so that the players are ready for that games. And the middle picture, okay, I will save this example for later. And when I'm talking about the off season and preseason, how to start, now in the next few slides, we can go to the next slide, Daniela, and thank you for being patient with these slides. And again, one of the questions that I ask myself is, how do I start my preseason? You know, when it comes to sprinting, and the I don't know how much of you are familiar with the concept of acute to chronic workload ratio, but acute to chronic workload ratio is not something that will tell you this guy will be injured or something like this, but it can be a great programming tool because it can tell you how much load you done you did for the last 7 days, and how this load is compared with the last 28 days. So you can see what are the jumps in the load. So when it comes to sprinting, I like to use that approach, so acute to chronic load. And when it comes to starting of preseason, I always say lean on your off season or lean on your last weeks of in season. So if Edward uh, on the last week of in season sprinted 200 meters, this is something that I will definitely use, and I will start with this. So this will be my weekly volume because this is something that Edward is adapted to. That's it. Chronic loads reflect the adaptation process and improvement. So imagine like this, and it's a common sense. So first week we are here. Uh, the next week we are here. The third week we are a little bit above that. But we start the preseason and we immediately put 11 against 11. We put some more sprint work and we put more running. What is happening? We increased the load for 30 or 40% than the last 30 days. And what we noticed here is that a lot of younger players had muscle problems, and older players, older, so like 30, 31, 28, something like me, 30, 34, they had more problems with tendons, so like patellar tendons, ankle tendons, because the volume started to be too high in the preseason because preseason was too had too big volume because our maybe off season isn't been hasn't been good planned. So our off season before we are starting preseason is a great window of opportunity for the preseason. So the first thing is you can use concept, acute, and chronic load. Next slide. So what we can do next with that? So we can, step one, understand your off season. Start with the last week. Use 10% rule. Your preseason should lean on your off season last week. So we can have a player who have these values, 10% increase and 10% decrease. So this is his zone in the first week of preseason where I want to be when it comes to sprinting or when it comes to total distance or something. So this is better than just coming to the preseason and we just start to hit numbers running or something. No, we need to understand what is the chronic adaptation, like Carlos said, we need to understand that, so we need to understand, and that's why collecting that information is quite useful, because it can give us the answers like this. So the next slide, you will see the step 2. So the step 2 is we can use ACVR, and we can divide the week into two small weeks. So let's say that Carlos have 300 meters of sprinting in the first week, and in the second week of preseason, I want to use the zone. The zone is 0.8 to up to 1.2. So 0.8 to 1.2. So 200 meters, when we calculate and multiply it with 0.8, we will get 180 meters, 170 meters. And when we multiply that with 1.2, we will get you will get 260 meters. So this is the zone in the next week where I want to be for Carlos in sprinting, to keep him in sweet zone if my, of course, preseason lets me, if I have enough time. And Carlos is a strength conditioning coaching club, and he started to work the sprinting, and he done a session on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Carlos is sitting down on Wednesday, checking what he had been doing the first 3 days, seeing is he collecting the numbers, and he progress in the next 3 days, so Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And this is how we get to the next slide. And the next slide is the step 2, a little bit more explained. So this is the example how we can calculate that safe zone. And in the step 3, we can go to the next slide. In step 3, we can use something that is called training load reserve. And this is something that I explain now with Carlos' example. He will plan and do session on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He will sit down on his laptop. He will see that he collect 150 meters. Okay, cool. We have 70 more meters up to Friday to hit before the game, or just to stay on that zone. Maybe he will hit it, maybe not. But like this, you are controlling the process, and you will be more proactive, not just retroactive when something is happening. And this all brings me to a few of the microcycles. So to the next slide. And this is one of the weekly loads, what you can expect for that player when it comes to zones. And you can define with this idea what is a deload week, maintenance week, but also overload week for Carlos, Ivica, or some of you guys here in sprinting, but also in high speed running and total distance. So this is just one example of one player. And now, let's say if I see that the values are closer to the green zone, I know that this is a deload week for him, and I can continue with that work. But if I see this 800 meters in sprinting, then this is definitely an overload week for that guy. And what can I do? I can focus more on recovering hamstrings, calves, hip flexors, because these are the muscles that have been impacted the most in those actions. But also for the next week, I want maybe to be closer to yellow or green zone when it comes to sprinting, because what you don't want to see, we can go to the next slide, is you don't want to see a lot of weeks, but also a lot of days that are green, like red, week 1, week 2, week 3, that all of them are red. This is not good, because we are entering into something that is called monotony. And the monotony is that some of you knows what monotony is. Again, 10 seconds, anyone. So what is the monotony when it comes to concept in periodization? Just use also the logic. When it's something monotonous, it means that something is boring. Training is the same. That's it. That's it, Callum. So if we have a monotony that is high, or the low, no variability, Jordan, that's it. So what we notice with our own data, but if you check also the research, high loads constantly without recovery periods, or constantly low examples in constantly low training sessions, there is no variation, and the players are sometimes undertrained or sometimes are overtrained. So what we want to see is we want to have the fluctuation in weeks, but also in days. So we want sometimes to have recovery. We can go up to the middle week, but we can have a load week. And I have some of the unwritten rules when I'm working with my teams. I don't want to see 3 weeks in one by like after each other in a green zone, but I also don't want to see 3 weeks in the yellow zone because I will have average players. Here I will have underprepared players. Here I will have overloaded players. So I want to have the fluctuation in load, but also in sprinting. So if I'm constantly in 500-meter sprinting, bam, 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 in a high load week, there is a matter of time when this player maybe will start to feel, some part of his body that are not well recovered. So this is the important concept, especially when it comes to sprinting in preseason, but also during the whole season. So the next slide, now we will see when to put that speed work into a microcycle. So I will stay here for not so long because I have 3 examples like this. You will see them, but just to give you the idea. One more question for you guys. What do you notice that is common for uh, on this slide? So do you see any patterns that are from like that are similar? Do you notice something that is immediately like, okay, I see some pattern? Focus on the colors. Anyone? Size of the field? Okay, that's it. So in some games we are emphasizing more some fields and some intensities, 3 level of intensities, but also there is something that is even more like, I miss the word in English, that is like a more simpler, let's say, simpler variation. Look the colors of the days. And yeah, so the colors of the days, again, we are coming back to the colors: red, green, yellow. That's it. High, low, blue is top ending. That's it. And there is an unwritten rule, and 2 weeks with the same load, like Franjo said here. So this is the idea that you guys can use in a horizontal programming. When it comes to horizontal programming of speed, I mean by that is that you are programming speed from day to day. But when it comes to vertical periodization, I mean that this is programming sprinting from week to week. So in horizontal periodization, we can have one rule, and the rule goes like this: after a game, 2 days after a game should be green. 2 days before a game, we should use for topper. And this is something that we follow with our first teams, like senior teams. But now you had a lot of research, and we also noticed this, that even under 17 players are maybe not still recovered on match day +2. So they also need to follow similar pattern when it comes to periodization. And in the middle, what stays, these are the days that we should use and that we can use for development, like Costa said here, yellow is high load. And one example here is, this is the classic tactical periodization microcycle, and this is something that can be quite easily used when you're working in younger setting, in academies. But when it comes to seniors, then maybe this is not the good option. Why? Because you don't give the players time to recover between those two trainings. Question again for you: what do you think if we have a session here in recovery, so match day +2, then session match day +3, then session match day -3, and then we are hitting speed? Are we really hitting maximum velocity after 3 days of small study games, large study games, and everything? Maybe not, because maybe our players are not recovering in this way. So maybe the speed training is not coming on the right way. Yeah, maybe we don't have time for it. So maybe the speed emphasis should be put it somewhere closer at the beginning of the week, or even maybe to switch mesh day -2 and mesh day -1. That's it. No, because the neuromuscular system is fatigued, and this is something that we noticed also with our teams. So this is a good concept because we have enough time to work on technical, tactical aspects. But when it comes to physiological, biomechanical, or GPS periodization, yeah, this is some concept that is maybe we need to talk more about the GPS periodization concept, or the numbers that we are collecting according to football that we are playing. Maybe mesh day -2 in this scenario is not the best option to hit speed. So maybe we should focus speed more on mesh day +3 or even mesh day -3 on this example, and to move mesh day -2 here. Okay, I will Kostas read this and I will answer immediately on this. That's a disadvantage of having day off at mesh day +1, and we can switch to happening days, active recovery and mesh day -2. That's it. Active recovery, mesh day -2, and maybe mesh day -1. We can focus on more velocity work. Why? Because when players are coming closer to the games, we want to see them fresh. So we want to see high velocities reached here. And for me, there is no better pop effect or neuromuscular and CNS activation than sprinting. So maybe few sprints on a mesh day -1 in a low volume, high quality, can have great pop impact on that training session, but also for a game next day. Next slide. Next, one more example, and now you will see Kostas the different variation, different examples. So maybe one of the solutions that we can do. And can some of you tell me what's the difference between this slide and the previous one? Do you notice? Do you notice what's the difference? So in this slide and in the previous one. Again, look the colors. One of the moved recovery day. There is no recovery session in the middle of the week. That's it. 2 days off. 2 days off. So on the mesh day -3, this is something that we put it in one of our academies. Why? Because we noticed that we had a lot of injuries, neuromuscular injuries, and we did not reach out maximum sprinting velocities on mesh day -2 because the players were not recovered because of the 3-day periodization cycle, and then we moved on mesh day -2. Alexander told, so Alexander, with this one, with this example, because I have a lot of good experience with this type of microcycle when it comes to training sprinting, and this is the idea that I took from Charlie Francis. He's a sprinting coach, and who knows better about sprinting than sprinting coaches? And now we can discuss about the technique of sprinting, but it comes back usually to physiology, biomechanics, and everything. And I like to use high-low days. So in mesh day +2, we have a low day, then we go to a high day, then we go to the low day, high day on mesh day -2, low day mesh day -1, and on match we have a high day when it comes to dose and volumes and intensities. So like this, I have more fluctuations and less monotony in my vertical in my horizontal programming. So introduction of recovery day in the middle of the week gives me opportunity to train harder on mesh day +3, but also to train more and with more intensity on mesh day -2. Would they be recovered on mesh day +2? Well, and now this goes again, it's a great question, and I will answer that immediately, because on mesh day +2, maybe we will not hitting max velocities, but we can do small study games. We can do possessions on medium dimensions with medium to large number of players, because this will reduce the intensity. We can work on opening games like passing from the first part of the pitch to the second or to the third. and we can have not so big spaces on match day plus 2. Like this, we will save the players from high intensity and sprinting work, and then we will put more of that work on match day plus 3. I had one rule when it comes to microcycle like this. On a first day of a week, please don't use large dimensions because of the fullbacks, wingers, and sprinting. Don't shoot on a big goal away from 16 meters because this will also impact on quadriceps and hamstrings. So just two simple rules: don't play on these dimensions and don't shoot on these games. Everything else you can do, let's say, on more structured way. But on match day plus 3, you can hit the load, whatever example you want to do. Small study games, medium study games, transitions, everything. And the next slide, I think the one now, this one is the same example, yeah, but now I put it an idea how to have better warm-ups when it comes to sprint work and preparation of the players. So here below, you can see, depending on the day and depending on the quality that we will focus on match day plus 3 sprinting and match day minus 2 sprinting, you can see what type of contraction I can use, just examples, before session or after session, to hit that football drills even better. Let's say match day minus 2, we have a velocity, they sprinting on 30, 40 meters, large study games. So muscles like hamstrings, calves, foot, and hip flexors definitely should be activated before session. So like pogo jumps, isometric activation of hip flexors, isometric activation or concentric activation of hamstrings. These are the drills that can be combined with sprinting work in a microcycle example like this. And in the next slide, I even go into more details. Now we can use, depending on the day in the microcycle, you guys can hit different qualities of strength conditioning. So on day 1 of the week, day 2, day 3, day 4. And on the left side, you can see the stretching quality, mobility, core, and focus on sprinting, agility, and change of direction. So every day we work on sprinting, agility, and change of direction, but on a different distances, different recoveries, and different durations. Next slide. And of course, just one idea. Now, when we talked about the testing, the periodization and programming, now just one idea how we can test those qualities in microcycle. So let's say if we are training sprinting and doing sprinting on match day minus 2 and match day minus 4 or match day plus 3 here, maybe it's not a bad idea to test also what is happening with that hamstrings or what is happening with reactive strength index. So this is just on the right side, you can see the colors. And match day minus 2 are, let's say, reactive strength index. And like Daniela said, we have a few more slides, but these are all just videos, and we will pass them through so we can proceed on the next slide. On the next slide, I will just give you an example. These are the last slides of like the idea of one training session. So match day minus 4 is the highly competitive training. We train main principles of the game. Tactical, mental, emotional load are high. You can see that duration is 90 to 120 minutes. RP is 7 to 9. Here you can see the exercises that we can use on that particular day. Just an example. Next slide. Next slide is even more details that I prepared. So when it comes to dimensions of players, meters per player, heart rate, RPE. So what we focus on match day minus 4 are explosive actions and more actions. So we want to have quality, but also we can collect quantity because it's match day minus 4. I usually focus on match day minus 4 on strength training, force-oriented exercises, total distance. Sometimes we cover 70% of the game. but sometimes we cover 100% of sprinting and high-speed load in that day. So it's not a problem that we hit this like 200 meters in that day on sprinting. And some idea that you can use for testing on mesh day -4, because we are doing sprinting, askling hamstring test, Nordic hamstring test with the Norboard or maximum velocity testing. These are all good metrics and exercises that we can use like a preparation, but also as a testing tool. And of course, after session, some methods that can be used, because those muscles were emphasized, we can also recover those muscles after that session. Next slide. And now I think, Daniela, these are not yet, one more examples of exercises. And we are coming now to the videos. Daniela, you will again need to give me the permission after this one. Yeah, we can go just to show few of them that you can see some of the examples. Nice. So this one you have. One of the examples of the exercises that you can use before like training session, but also after the training session. So this one is the hip extension. Now let's see if this one is playing. Okay, this one is coming. I am giving you the permission. Okay, cool. So here you can see the preparation of adductors with a little bit higher velocities when I'm pushing the player. And now the permissions are coming. So two more, and we can do this on this slide example. They should now be ready. Yeah, this one is coming. So why anti-rotation? So this is anti-rotation exercise because on the mesh day -4, we are using anti-rotation core exercises because we will have a lot of rotations when it comes to change of direction, and also sprinting on that day, because this is the overload day, high intensity day. And when it comes to core training, this is also important to emphasize. So some anti-rotation movements, rotation movements, medicine ball throws, but also hamstring work emphasizing on that day. So we can move to the next slide. Yeah, okay, now the exercise is starting. Just holding, resisting of flexion, resisting of extension, preparing the hip extensors before the session, before that mesh day -4. Now, next slide. Next slide, just to see if some of the videos are working. Yeah, these are all good. We have three slides here. Okay, again, preparation of hip flexors. This example, preparation of ankle, calf muscles, and down video we can use, of course, some plyometric work, because plyometric work is a great transition between the strength but also sprinting. And what is plyometric than sprinting? So these are just examples: isometric contraction, concentric contraction, plyometric contraction. So combination of everything, because will be emphasized on games. So we can proceed to the next slide. Let's see which videos we have here. Okay, maybe we can go, Daniela, to the next slide, because these are just, again, the same examples, and I can send you guys these videos. We can show just this one, the big one. Yeah, because this is one example in return to sport when it comes to sprinting, and then we can finish with the whole video story, because it's a little bit more complex, and I don't want to take too much, guys, of your time. Now the permission is granted. Let's see. Yeah. So this one example we used for a player that is, you can see her sprinting because she had a knee injury, but also previous hamstring injury. But do you notice here that we are sprinting 40 meters and we are testing sprinting? So on 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, but also after that, we incorporate a curve sprint with receiving the ball and a long pass. So we can test but also we can use it in a training surrounding. So this is just one idea. If you had a player who is injured, but you want to see her sprinting, but you want to also collect some information from her from that session or for him. Okay, that's good with the videos. We can go to the next slide, and we can skip now the last slide with the videos. We can immediately go to the last example. And the last example is one compensation training session. If you remember from the beginning, we have different groups of the players. This is just one example how we can plan a compensation training session for the players who did not participate in a game. And when it comes to sprinting in preseason, because these scenarios are constantly in preseason weeks, because some of the players are playing first day 60 minutes, some of them are playing 30 minutes, some of them are not playing nothing on that day, but they still need to hit some of the qualities. And I usually follow this 75% rule of the game. So 75% of the load from the game for that player I want to cover. And as you can see here, and this is the last question from my side and the last slide from my side. So the question for you is why I have so much different drills in compensation training session. Why do we have technical passing, then maximum velocity, then high velocity conditioning, then repeated efforts like change of direction, sprinting, so like stop and go activities? Why do we have so much different variations in compensation? Game reality, that's it, to replicate game reality. And we want this is good because you're all awake and this is good to see. So yeah, we want to replicate the game reality. And the last concept is in football, sometimes we want to stimulate adaptation, sometimes we want to simulate the game demands. So if Edward have an unpredictability of the game, that's it, Michael. And so to get back to this example, sometimes we want to simulate game demands for Edward, but sometimes we want to stimulate adaptation to Edward. So we want to simulate 300 meters of high-speed running, just simulate game demands. But if Edward have bad VO2 max capacity, we want to stimulate adaptation, and we will collect maybe 2000 meters of high-speed running in one training session. So this is something that we need to have in mind. So the concept of simulation and the concept of stimulation. And the next slide, and is the last slide. And thank you everyone for listening. These are the codes that you can find more information about me, about our company, what we are doing, and you can find different blogs, topics. You can reach out, we can talk, we can discuss. And thank you for listening, for being here. And sorry one more time for delaying the start. And thank you, Daniela, for following me through the presentation. This was so smooth, the transition. So everything was good. Yeah,
Well, I think, well, first of all, thank you. I know you could talk forever. This is really a topic, and I know how passionate you are
yeah,
about and about sharing your knowledge also. So please, if you have any question, you can reach out to us. You can always reach out to Marco, but I have like before maybe we take some time for those who want to stay, we can answer some of the questions. There's some questions in the chat. We can answer 3 or 4 questions. Those who want to leave can leave. I want to share just why we cooperate with Marco so much. And we do have, I would share this with you. We do have a pre-conference at the ICST, the International Congress of Strength Training, which is very well situated already from Hecken and in this group. And we are very proud to have a pre-conference. And if you look at that pre-conference, we built it on team sports. So I think this is going to be in Freiburg in September. We have lots of very famous people coming from the NSCA, like Bill Kramer, Max Stone, and some others. And we will have the pre-conference again on team sports. So we have, in general, Maximum Strengths, who just brought out a book, Timothy Sakome, who just won some award at the NSCA conference. We will have Andreas Schlumberger, who was working with Kloppo, I would say, in Liverpool, whom you might all know. So strength and conditioning refocused on rehab is his topic. We will have Dr. Simon Overkamp, which is the current strength and conditioning coach of the national head team, then the current national coach from the German cycling team, and Christian Bosse, who is also working with tons of Olympians. We will have Julie Morsche from the national coach from the basketball national team, and working also with the women team 3-on-3, who won the championship, the world championship. And then we of course have Marco back for some sessions. So here you have some prices on this website. I will put that website on. And we are very proud to be partner of this great conference in Freiburg. Come and see us there. If you're not too far away, I'm so happy that we had so many people from basically all over the world, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
We have some more webinars coming up. I'm trying to get Timothy and also Simon Overkamp into it, and hopefully, Marco, we're going to see you back also. So I'm very happy about this. If you want to stay for some questions, very well. It's late here over in Germany. I don't know what time it's over in some other countries that joined us, like the Philippines, for example. So thank you so very much, Marco. We stay for some questions. And those who leave, goodbye, good evening, wherever you are. Have a good day and see you back soon. So here you find some questions.
I see had the presentation being recorded. This is the first one just popped up. We have the recording of the presentation, and I will start then with the second one. I see one question here. In which way do you differ your approach between male and female players in terms of intensity, volume, and exercise selection, with a view on injuries? Well, I can say that I've been working for the last 10 years with females, and parallel with that, I'm working with male teams. So I can say that I have a lot of experience in this, and it's a good question, and I always get like this. Is there a difference in the intensities and volumes? And I will start, let's say, with exercises. So with exercise selection in strength, maybe it gets, because when you check just the injuries, what is happening between males and females, you can see that in female players, like we have more knee injuries, ankle injuries, but more quad than hamstrings injuries. So just with this information, I try to select exercises that will hit and trigger those muscles even more. And what I notice is that they can tolerate, and they really like strength training, and they can tolerate the intensities here. When it comes to maybe sometimes upper body exercises, then sometimes we change the modality, change the exercise, so we are not hitting maybe the big intensities, so big kilograms. So maybe we focus more on muscle endurance, hypertrophy, and more dumbbell or kettlebell work than barbell work. This is just my approach, because it's easier to them like this than to put too much, I don't know, weight in bench press. And when it comes to intensities in football or in endurance, so what do you think, Michael, or everybody inside, who hit more total distance in games, male or female players? So total distance, who hit more? Is it male players or female players? Just the volume, 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers in games. What do you think?
I think it's women, because people always say like, hey, they're always running after the ball.
they're running a lot, but they're running the same. They're running the same. The volumes is the same, because we are tracking our team for the last few years with GPS, and when you check the research, and running volumes depends a lot on tactical behavior, like Daniela said. So sometimes they run even more because maybe tactical concepts are not quite clear, and they need to run more. But when it comes to intensity, this is where the story starts to be more complex. One more question from my side. I know that I'm boring, but it's easier like this. So maximum velocity for a female player in don't use let's not use uh, top clubs like I don't know City, Juventus, female clubs, Barcelona, and those clubs. Let's use clubs that we are working. Like first division Croatian club, second division Croatian club, maybe second division German club. There, so maximum velocities of those players. What do you think? Is it 35 kilometers, 33, 31? Male more high speed running than females. Yeah, women 32, men 37. Men top players go to 36, 37. Here in Croatia league, we notice like female players sometimes 29, 28, like a maximum velocity. Now imagine that we are using speed threshold, absolute threshold from GPS devices, and we say 25 is their sprinting uh, threshold that they need to hit to go above that and they reach sprinting. But maybe it's not like this. So we need to have individualized zones for every player, but also for the female players. So it's not the same like men. We cannot use the same intensities when it comes to interpretation of the high speed running and sprinting. So I approach to this with individualization in the zones of the female players. How? We do 40-meter sprint and we use 80% rule of their maximum velocity. So from 80% of that velocity up to 100% is their speed zone. So if the female player, have 28 kilometers per hour maximum velocity, so 80% of that, so let's say from 24 or 23 up to 28 is the maximal sprinting zone for that player. So this is how we can be even more closer than just to use absolute zones. I hope that Michael, this answered on your question.
Maybe we have one last question. I put a question from an attendee into the chat. Maybe that one.
Yeah, would you like to read it? Is this
It was for a player who don't have played 90 minutes, not in preseason or in season. How do you make a player profile for that player? Make it advantage per 90 minutes or compare that player to another player?
not in preseason or in season? Okay. So if the player is, we can use different approaches. So we can use player and we can use approach all games 90 minutes, or you can use approach all games 75 and above that. And this is also a good starting point. So if he's playing 74, so every game that is played from 75 minutes up to 90 minutes and more, it goes into the equation. So this is some of the ideas. But I also checked before all of the minutes and also the games above 75 minutes, and you will see uh, definitely the player who played 30 or 40 minutes just in games will have uh, big jumps when you compare the training session with that. But if you compare the intensities, like high speed running per minute, sprinting per minute, total distance per minute, then playing just 40 minutes is still good, to have. So if you don't have a player who played 90 minutes or 75 minutes, don't be, like encouraged to use 40 minutes, but then know what you are looking for. So check the intensities. Is he hitting the intensities on training sessions that are closer to game demands? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have a few more questions inside, but maybe we can. I know that we are now with the time. Uh,
I
well,
think we are way over, and I hate to cut off questions, but I think it just gets too long for some people. And
yeah,
I know you are always available, so maybe I put the link here. We're gonna send you some code afterwards if you want to join us in at the pre-conference at the ISCST, and if you want to meet Marko in person with his team, so then just come out there and ask all the questions you want to. So thank you very much.
that's it.
night. And thank you, Marco, again. Thank you, all the attendees. There was a ton here. We are so happy to have you here. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniela.